But first, a new bombshell poll published today shows that nearly half of the King's realms would vote to become republics if they had the chance. Caribbean countries cite colonial ties as the reason for wanting to part with the monarchy. And pretty disturbingly for King Charles, 10 of the 14 countries polled say they back the Sussexes.
Hi everyone, welcome back to the channel. Today we're diving into a heated debate from Piers Morgan Uncensored. Should King Charles apologize for Britain's colonial past? And should reparations be on the table? Buckle up because this one gets fiery.
Saying Meghan's treatment exposes racist views. It's ignited debate about whether King Charles should apologise for Britain's past sins, maybe even pay reparations. Would that make any difference? Or would it just fuel the fire of republicanism? Well, here with me now to debate this, the former royal butler to Princess Diana, Paul Burrell, the activist and organiser of Black Lives Matter protests, Iman Ayton, and the historian and royal author, Dr. Tessa Dunlop. Well, this will be a quiet debate, won't it? Well, you brought your earplugs, Paul.
I won't get a look in.
Paul, let me start with you. I've got a problem with this constant looking back in history, feeling guilty for stuff that none of us in this era actually did, and then having to say sorry for everything that we didn't do, and even now, apparently having to pay people today for stuff that happened to their ancestors many generations before. I don't really get what that achieves.
We should learn from lessons of the past. We can't change anything, and we should move forward. But the Queen's greatest achievement, his mother's greatest achievement, was the Commonwealth of Countries. She was very proud of that. I think if we could beam her down now, she would say, my Commonwealth. That should survive intact into the King's reign. So he should do whatever he can. Now, bear in mind, I've known this man for a very long time.
Yeah.
He has a voice. And he will say what he feels.
Here's the real problem he's got. There's another voice yapping away about racism. Two voices. His son, Harry, and Harry's wife, Meghan, who for 3 years have branded the royal family a bunch of callous racists. That is now turning up in these polls because, understandably, frankly, black people in the Commonwealth around the world are going, whoa, really?
Let's set the stage. Nearly half of King Charles's realms would vote to become republics. Caribbean nations cite colonial ties and slavery as reasons to cut ties. The debate featured Piers Morgan, Paul Burrell, and others. Should King Charles apologize for Britain's past sins? Piers had his gloves off, turning the conversation into a war of words.
They're racist, these people, and yet they haven't produced a shred of evidence for any of it.
You and I know the royal family are not racist, and you and I know that they pressed the racist button on the Oprah Winfrey show.
Yeah.
And they never apologised to the Queen.
Never.
She went to her grave thinking there was a racist in the royal family.
And after she died, they said...
What happened?
We never
didn't say that, the press said that.
We didn't mean to say it was racism.
Why didn't you correct it, Harry? Why didn't you tell your...
Well, we know why, because it made them... They weaponised racism and mental health to make themselves extremely rich.
I totally agree.
All right, Iman, this is my problem. This has always been my problem with this racism narrative that these two have spun without any evidence, is that people around the world, particularly people of colour, they believe it. And why wouldn't they believe it? They're hearing the first person who wasn't a white royal bride say they're racist, these people. So then the damage is palpable, it's tangible, and it will lead, I think, if we're not careful, to a load of these countries becoming republics and the beginning of the end of the monarchy.
Thank you for your soliloquy.
No, thank you.
All right, no problem. So first and foremost, my feelings on the royal family and racism are not predicated on Harry and Meghan's willingness to identify it. That's the difference between me and you. We are talking about a country that was built off of racism, and we are referring to the oldest institution in this country that started it all. So that's the first thing. In terms of why black people and many others feel the way that we do, well, the monarchy is a symbol of white supremacy. OK? White supremacy. That is the reason. Let me just
Why
finish.
does it make any difference if King Charles says sorry? Or why does it make if he pays money? What difference does that make?
OK. So reparations...
How does that combat racism?
No, it actually does. So let me
The guy hasn't got a racist bone in his body. He's done more for racism than any public figure in the country. Why should he be paying for the sins of people hundreds of years ago?
OK, so can I finish?
Yes.
Thank you very much.
Piers didn't hold back. He argued that none of us today were responsible for our ancestors' actions. He highlighted Queen Elizabeth II's positive legacy with the Commonwealth and suggested focusing on the monarchy's achievements over its colonial past. Piers accused Harry and Meghan of weaponizing the racism narrative. Iman Ayton came in strong. She called the monarchy a symbol of white supremacy, profiting from slavery and colonialism. The legacies of systemic racism and disparities in wealth are still alive today. She argued for an apology and reparations from King Charles. The debate got heated, with constant interruptions. And let's be real, it's where the iconic "let me finish" line became the highlight.
So, the monarchy is a symbol of white supremacy, which is what black people have had to contend with for the last 400 years, notwithstanding the fact that Elizabeth, or every king and queen, from Elizabeth I.
You think the last late queen was a model of white supremacy?
Let me finish my point. You just asked me several questions. Let me finish my point.
Well, answer the question.
Right,
then.
I'm getting there, so just finish.
Well, hurry
Let
up.
me just finish, okay?
Hurry up.
So, every king and queen, from Elizabeth I to William IV, has supported and profited off of slavery. So, this is about the fact that this country was built off of racism, and that's
this
the
country
point.
also
Wait, hold on a
led.
second. This country
You can't just keep
stems
talking.
From, no, because I haven't even finished my point.
You
Piers.
can't just
keep
make
interrupting.
outlandish
You
statements
keep
about our royal family and not
interrupting.
expect me to jump in.
Piers, you keep interrupting. Can I finish my point?
This country also led the world out of slavery.
Okay, so can I finish my point?
A
Is that
long
right?
time ago.
Can I finish my point, please?
Yes.
Perfect.
But
So,
please finish it.
I will, no problem, just be patient. So, every single king and queen from Elizabeth I to William IV over a 270-year
You've just
period
said this.
supported the enslavement of Africans and profited as a result. So it
Yeah.
doesn't, it
And
doesn't
this
take any
country-
genius, hold on a second, it doesn't take a genius to figure out that this country was built off of racism and it stems from white supremacy, all of which is directly attributed to the crown, slavery and colonialism. To answer
you
your
now-
point, let me finish
You can't
my
just
point.
keep talking.
Piers, you keep interrupting.
Answer my question.
Let's have a conversation.
Answer my question.
Let's have a
We need
conversation. You spoke
mediation
about
here,
slavery.
guys.
You spoke about slavery. Let me answer the point.
I asked you a specific question.
I want to
Why
answer
should
the point.
King Charles
So let me answer the
be
point.
either
Let me
apologising
answer the point.
for what happened centuries ago
Okay, let me
or
answer the
paying money for it?
Okay, so what you're talking about is slavery. I'm not talking about slavery. Slavery can be traced back to Europe. The Greek slave trade, to be specific, in 400 BC, then the Roman Empire, and then we get to the Muslim conquest of 7th century.
And
Vikings,
black
Vikings,
people
Vikings.
had slaves
So, what
too,
we're talking about,
right?
exactly. So I'm not talking about
slavery
Piers.
comes in
I
many
am not
forms.
talking about
There is a lot of slavery around
Piers,
today.
So I'll tell you what I'm talking about. I'm talking about colonialism, neo-colonialism, racism, racial
Yeah.
disparities, and the racist system of oppression and exploitation of black people and white supremacist attitudes, which have been rebanded under the
What's
guidelines.
that got to
That's
do
what
with
I'm
King
talking about.
Charles?
Dr. Tessa Dunlop argues the monarchy represents continuity, with ties to events going back centuries. Britain led in ending slavery but compensated slave owners, not the enslaved. The monarchy is intertwined with Britain's colonial history. Should the government apologize? Share your thoughts.
I am telling you why he needs to apologise and pay reparations.
What did he
It's not
do?
anything to do with slavery.
What
is
did
an
he
element.
do?
I'm telling you, colonialism, neo-colonialism,
He didn't
racism,
do that.
racial disparities and a racist system and white supremacist attitudes. That is the legacies of the crown, slavery and colonialism that still remains.
I
to this day.
understand.
Let me finally get my point across. Lord,
You've
need
got
to
your
let me
point
finish.
across, but here's my point, my counterpoint to you. What's any of that got to do with King Charles,
Okay, so I'll
who
explain.
actually has been, I think, one of the great standard bearers in royal history for actually promoting racial inequality and tackling racial
Okay,
injustice.
so let me
Yet you
explain.
want him to be issuing grovelling apologies for people hundreds of years ago,
So let me
and you
explain.
want him to pay money.
Okay, so I think black people would be far more inclined to get over it if it wasn't for the fact that the legacies of the crown, slavery and colonialism still remain, which includes racism, racial disparities and the racist global system of oppression and exploitation of black people. Which
All right, you're not
I'm
answering my
about.
question,
I
Tessa.
am, but you don't want to accept
No,
it. That's
I
the
do.
difference.
No,
That is the difference.
you haven't explained
You
what-
also have the
what's
wealth of
that got to
economic
do with King
expansion
Charles?
as a result of exploitation of black people.
Let
And
Tessa-
you also
let
have,
Tessa-
and you also have
let
rich
Tessa
global...
speak now.
Hold on. You haven't even let me finish, Piers. No problem, no problem. I've understood
You've
how you
done
do.
9/10 of the talking.
No, you didn't let me
Tessa?
finish. You didn't let me
I
finish.
You've heard the debate.
I think you're both wrong, actually. On the one hand, we celebrate, and you certainly do, Piers, the idea of monarchy as continuity.
Yeah.
Going way back when. I mean, I read an article this week that traced the anointing oils to the Old Testament and King Solomon. You can't pick and choose which bits of that continuous historic line you like.
Yes, I can.
Well,
How is that
you,
that I'm
you
wrong?
can, but it's hugely,
But
it's
how is it that I'm
hugely
wrong? How is it that I'm
problematic.
wrong? What are you
And I
talking
would
about,
counter
Tessa?
to you, where we have the face of history and the physical form of history in our royal family.
White
When,
supremacy, that's
for
what I'm talking
example,
about.
France, the Republic, outlawed slavery much later.
Piers pivoted to modern slavery, noting millions of slaves today, especially in India. He argued we should combat present-day issues rather than obsess over the past. Iman countered, saying colonialism's legacies still affect black communities today.
And hand in the civil wars in America.
keep
That's what
talking
it took
about
in
slavery.
America.
Let me tell
Much
you.
later.
So you
So
keep
my
talking
point
about
is, no, two
slavery.
seconds. Let me finish my point.
You
Let
see, you
her
want to
finish.
interrupt, but you interrupted me several
let me
times,
finish
Piers. I
one
see
You
more
did all the
hypocrisy.
talking.
I see your hypocrisy right now. It's fine. I did all the talking.
I think
You
what
kept
you do,
interrupting me.
what we're doing here is
Let
we're
her speak.
conflating an individual
Back at you.
family with institutions of state. You can't expect a king to apologise. He doesn't have that power.
It's
He
about
would have
what
to
he
be
represents.
told to apologise
what
by
he
the government
represents. He's already
because it's an
apologised,
institution of
Tessa, so I don't know
state.
what
Do I have
you're
to? All right.
He's talked about sorry.
Excuse me.
He
Time
hasn't
out. Time
apologised.
out.
Actively apologised.
Time out.
In terms of slavery, hold on
Time
a
out.
second. You keep talking about slavery. Let's just be clear about slavery. Yes, you did end slavery. You've made that point and you've made that point, so let me address it. You did end slavery, and there was a clause in the contract that said, for example, that Jamaicans had to work up to 45 hours a week for the following 4 years, whilst you simultaneously paid off the slave owners and left the enslaved and their countries to rot. And then you transitioned to colonialism, where slavery still continued, and then you transitioned to the Commonwealth,
I agree.
where you continue to assert your dominance, exploit black people, and do it in a far
I
more dignified
agree,
way. while
Iman.
simultaneously
I
This is
agree.
all-
But
the-
it's
all
Republican.
negative.
There are also. Excuse me.
Nobody's refuting.
Can we all stop
the
talking?
repugnance.
All right.
Nobody's refuting
Tessa,
the
you really
repugnance
don't.
of that
Can we
period in
please
history.
time out? The biggest problem with slavery right now is there are between 7 to 10 million slaves in India. Last time I looked, that is not as a result of white supremacy causing modern day slavery. I would rather we expend all our energy on current slavery issues than going back in the
not talking
past
about slavery.
as we now do
I'm not
with
talking about
we
slavery.
now go back in the past for
not talking about
everything,
slavery, then.
wallowing in self-guilt about stuff that had nothing
I'm
to
not
do
talking
with
about
us.
slavery.
Paul.
Legacies. You
Jump
ignored
in.
that
Well,
conveniently.
well-
Legacies of the crown slavery and colonialism. You ignored that conveniently.
Do you-
Please
okay.
continue.
This is such
Please
a
continue,
negative.
Paul.
This is a
Legacy's
negative
going back
side.
how far? How far do you want to go back?
400 years black people have been constant.
Okay, so I
do you want them to do?
Okay,
I told you that.
So
I
do you
told
think
you
the
that.
Vikings should be paying me money for what they did to me?
See, you're talking about slavery. I am not. I already explained
I'm not
that
talking
to
about
you.
slavery.
I'm talking about colonialism,
You're not listening to me,
neocolonialism,
Imam.
racism and racial disparities that still contend.
Stop shouting. You're not listening to what I said.
You're not listening to me.
Should
This is why I'm
the
getting
Vikings
angry.
and the Romans also,
Hi, Paul.
through their modern day ancestors, be paying me reparations for what they did to my
Okay.
family?
So I'm not talking about slavery. I'm talking about colonialism.
It's not
neocolonialism,
slavery. You're not
racism,
listening
racial
to me.
disparities. Yes, I am.
The
Yes, I
Vikings and
am.
Romans didn't make us
Yes, I am.
slaves.
So where do we stand? Should King Charles issue an apology and consider reparations, or is this a fruitless exercise in guilt-tripping the present for the sins of the past? This debate has sparked massive conversations around history, responsibility, and race. I'd love to hear your thoughts. Where do you stand on this issue? Drop your opinions in the comments and let's keep the conversation going. And don't forget, if you enjoyed today's video, smash that like button, share this video with a friend, and hit subscribe for more debates, deep dives, and discussions every week. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you in the next one.